Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress reporting on round 5 of the 2018 Sinquefield Cup. We saw a few short draws in round 5 in Aronyan Anand, Karyakin Grishuk and Vaselagraf Karana. Nakamura Mamedyarov was also a draw, but that was quite an interesting game and I was considering to show this game to you, but in the end I chose the Magnus Carlsen Wesley So encounter. Here we see both players at the board during the endgame of their game. Let's see what happened. It was the 22nd of August. Carlsen was white, So was black. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, queen's gambit, and there comes c5. Wesley So is playing the Tarrasch defense. The main line here is c takes d5, knight takes, and then e4. The knight takes on c3, white takes back, black takes in the center, c takes, and then a bishop check. Bishop interposes, and the bishops get swapped. That's the main tabia line of this opening. But after c5, Carlsen plays another move. He plays e3. Knight c6, and only now did Carlsen take in the center. Knight takes and bishop d3. The official name of this line is the Semi-Tarrasch. So develops the bishop and both players castle. Queen e2 is an option. For example, this was played a few years ago by the reigning Russian champion Peter Svidler against the Chinese grandmaster Wei Yi. That game ended in a draw. And So plays b6. One idea of b6 is to play knight c to b4 to hit this bishop, and if the bishop drops back to b1, then you can play this bishop to a6, which will then hit the queen. The bishop on a6 is then protected by this knight on b4. This was explained by Grandmaster Rad1 in the live broadcast. Carlsen played rook d1, and So did not go for knight b4. He took in the center. Knight takes, queen takes, and e takes, and we have an IQP, the isolated queen's pawn position. And it was Grandmaster Ashley who explained that in this type of position, the first thing white wants to do is to keep as many pieces on the board as possible, and he wants to put his rooks on d1 and e1. Black wants to put his rooks on d8 and c8, and it's always an interesting game with the isolated queen's pawn. That's a theory, but as we'll see, these two top grandmasters play this position in a different way. You and I should play like Grandmaster Ashley explained, but Carlsen and So are not ordinary players. So played bishop b7, bishop e4 hitting the queen, queen dropped back, and g3, with the possible idea of playing bishop f4, developing that bishop with a tempo on the queen. Bishop f6 from So, and the bishop did not go to f4, it went to g5. Here, this is an important moment. Bishop takes g5 is the right move to play. And then knight takes d5, h6, but then white has d5, and maybe this move scared So away from this line and made him play something else. But it's okay. After e takes d5, rook takes d5, the queen drops back to c7, and black is okay. After bishop g5, Wesley So did not take. He played queen e7, and that's not a good move. Here Carlsen, as he said in his interview after the game, got excited. He thought he was going to have an advantage here. He took, queen takes, and here the best move according to the engine is rook ac1, putting a lot of pressure on the knight on c6, on the file, but also on the diagonal. A possible line is this. I'll show you the example. Rook ac8. We'll see how dangerous this is for black. Rook c3, intending to double on the c file. Knight a5. The other rook comes to the c file. Pair of rooks is traded. then Queen E7 to cover the C7 square, then Bishop takes B7, and if you take that with the knight, then there is Queen C2, and black is in big trouble. The white pieces will infiltrate, and if you take with the queen instead, then B4, kicking the knight back to C6, and then Queen E4 with again that same pressure on the diagonal and on the file. You may have knight D8 to protect your queen, get out of trouble, but after queen takes, knight takes, rook C7, this is a overwhelming position for white. So that's one possible variation after rook AC1, which shows how dangerous this is for black. Carlsen found another way to put pressure on the knight. He played knight E5, not as strong. Rook Fc8 and queen B5, that was Carlsen's idea. Again with lots of pressure on the knight, and a rook will come to the c-file. You can't swap your way out of trouble, you cannot take on e5, because then d takes e5, hitting the queen, queen back, and rook d7, protected by the queen, and white wins. So after queen b5, Wesley So found the only move, and that's knight a5. Carlsen took the bishop, knight takes, and queen d7. And again, black only has one move here. Rook ab8 to protect the knight is not good, because rook ac1, and black is busted, as Grandmaster Ashley said in the live broadcast. The queen cannot go to d8 to help out, because then f7 is hanging with check. Another variation that was looked at in the live broadcast is rook c2. What is wrong with that? It threatens checkmate, starting with queen takes f2. But then white calmly plays either f4 or rook f1 to protect against a checkmate, and is still much better. The only move in this position, and So found it, is knight c5. Nice move. We have to take a look at queen takes f7 check. Does that work? Queen takes, knight takes, king takes, and then we take the piece back. But after rook takes, rook d7 check, this is a rook endgame, which is about equal. Doesn't give white winning chances. So after knight c5, Carlsen took the knight. Queen takes, and c6, that looks like a very strong pawn. h5 to take any back rank funny business checkmates out of the position forever. And rook d6, nice move, stopping rook c7, which would have been protected by the queen. Now the rook is in the way. h4 was advocated by Grandmaster Rad1 to look for a counterplay against white's king, but So took on b2, finding counterplay in another way. Rook ad1 and queen c2. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave had finished his game at this moment, and he thought Carlsen was winning here, even though the engine gave about equality, because of the monster on c6, as he called it. He said, don't care that the engine gives 000, that pawn on c6 is a monster. It turned out to be an optical illusion, as we'll see. Wesley So had judged this position very well. Carlsen played h4, rook d8, and this is actually a position that both players put on the board straight after the game, but in the game Carlsen decided to give his queen for 2 rooks. He took, rook takes check, king h7, and rook 8 to d7. Now black can take that monster on c6, So didn't play that, because white can take on f7 and then double on the 7th rank. So did not want to go into this position. Instead he played a5. Now the pawn comes to c7, it looks very dangerous for black. But So calmly brings his pawns forward on the queen side to look for a counterplay there. White's problem is that he can promote his pawn. There's a way to do it, we'll look at an example later. But when he does, then he will leave his king open to perpetuals. And that is what this position is about. Let's have a look at an example. If white plays king g2 here, and then f6, rook e7 to set up rook d8 and then promotion of the pawn, then black should not take on d1, because then c8 queen with an extra rook, but he can play, for example, king g6, allowing that pawn to promote. Rook d8, and the next move will be promotion if white is allowed, but then black has a perpetual queen e4 check. Be careful, don't go to h3, because black wins this game. This is checkmate. After queen e4 check, you have to go to h2, and then queen e1, threatening to take on f2 with a perpetual. That's a problem for white. He can promote, but then his rooks will both have to leave his own house, which gives the queen enough room to set up a perpetual against white's king. Carlsen tried lots of things after the game. He said it was more out of frustration because he saw that he could not win this position. Let's look at the moves. We see a few move repetitions. And after having gone back and forth for a while, Carlsen plays rook e2. This move doesn't really work, but Carlsen wants to keep going with his usual fighting spirit. He has to be careful. Black can push his queenside pawns and create his own passed pawn on the second rank, which will threaten to promote, so he cannot go too far. e5 from So here. Carlsen went back. b4, there come black's queenside pawns. The rook went to d6 again. King g6, king g2. This queen has been on c2 many times, and rook e7, threatening rook d8 and promotion, but as we saw before, the white king doesn't have enough protection. And that ended the game, because here So gave the perpetual. These moves were played very quickly, and then after the 51st move, queen e4 check, the players smiled, shook hands, and this game had ended in a draw. Here we see the handshake. Nice to see the players smile. Good sportsmanship. This is the table after 5 rounds, and it looks very much like the table after 4 rounds. All that has changed is that everybody has got another half a point, and we still have the 5 leaders. Half the field is leading the Sinquefield Cup 2018. Thursday the 23rd of August will be a rest day, and on Friday the 24th of August this will be the pairing for round 6. Nakamura, Aranyan, Mamedyarov, Vachier-Lagrave, Caruana, Karyakin, Grishuk, Carlsen, and So against Anand. I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. The World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana is getting closer and closer. I'd like to draw your attention to a series I'm doing on building up to that match, counting down from 100 days to 0 by looking at all the previous World Championship events. There were 46 of them. Carlsen Caruana is number 47. You can find a playlist of this series here. Hope you have a look. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. If you like this video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.